Hey warriors, the greatest mistake you can make when facing opposition is believing that victory comes from proving yourself right. Because the moment you feel compelled to argue, explain, or react, you have already surrendered something far more valuable than the argument itself. You have surrendered control, and control is the currency of power. When you argue, you feed attention into hands that were empty. You expose emotional pathways that should have remained sealed, and you allow others to dictate the tempo of your inner world. An adversary is never interested in truth. They are interested in response, because response confirms influence, and influence is what weak minds crave when they cannot command respect through substance. They want to pull you into noise, where ego replaces precision and urgency replaces strategy, because chaos favors those who lack depth. This is why the loudest voices rarely hold the strongest positions. True power has never been theatrical. It has always been internal, cultivated in restraint, sharpened through patience, and expressed through silence that unsettles rather than comforts. Long before modern psychology gave names to these dynamics, observers of power understood a simple reality. Those who react are predictable, and those who are predictable are controllable. The individual who remains calm, unreadable, and emotionally sealed forces others to operate without reference, and when people lack reference, they begin to unravel themselves. Silence is not emptiness, it is pressure redistributed. When no answer comes, the weight shifts onto the one demanding it, and under that weight, most people reveal more than they intend. They fill the absence with explanations, accusations, justifications, and emotional leakage, mistaking motion for control. Their mind begins to work against them, replaying imagined conversations, searching for hidden meanings, inventing threats where none were spoken. And this internal noise drains clarity and confidence. Meanwhile, you remain untouched. Not because you are passive, but because you are selective. Words are commitments, and commitments narrow options. By withholding them, you preserve flexibility, allowing conditions to evolve while others rush to anchor themselves to positions they will later regret. This restraint reshapes perception as well. Those who speak constantly appear needy for validation, while those who remain composed appear self-contained, and self-containment signals authority without announcement. Authority sensed rather than declared is the most stable form of dominance because it does not invite challenge, it invites adjustment. As others struggle to interpret you, they reveal priorities, insecurities, and ambitions in their attempts to gain footing, offering you insight without resistance. Information flows toward the silent observer, creating asymmetry, and asymmetry is power. Emotional control deepens this advantage because emotion is the most visible signal people leak under pressure. Anger accelerates mistakes, fear narrows vision, pride demands reaction, and excitement loosens discipline, each state forming a pattern that can be exploited. When you feel without acting, when you observe sensation without surrendering direction, you create a buffer where strategy lives. Inside that buffer, timing becomes your ally. Urgency collapses, manipulation loses traction, and situations that once felt provocative transform into optional data points. A steady presence destabilizes those who rely on reaction, because expected responses do not arrive, creating mismatch, and mismatch breeds doubt. Doubt fractures confidence, and fractured confidence hesitates before acting again. Over time, composure becomes reputation, and reputation precedes you into every interaction, softening threats, refining offers, and discouraging pressure without confrontation. By allowing others to speak freely, by resisting the urge to interrupt or correct, you turn conversation into a mirror where they expose themselves. Rehearsed narratives run dry when unchallenged. Improvisation begins, and improvisation reveals intent. What they emphasize shows value, What they avoid signals vulnerability, and what they repeat becomes a constraint they impose on themselves. You remain unbound while they anchor their identity publicly, limiting future movement. Public correction, though tempting, fractures dignity and converts minor errors into lasting resistance because pride wounded under observation seeks retaliation, not truth. Discretion preserves leverage, keeping channels intact and influence fluid, while spectacle hardens positions and invites spectators who amplify stakes. Audiences remember discomfort longer than accuracy, and trust eroded to win. A moment is an expensive trade. By choosing privacy over exposure, you secure cooperation without igniting opposition, allowing errors to be addressed when timing serves outcome rather than ego. Understatement further strengthens position because visible strength invites countermeasures, while concealed capacity distorts calculations and breeds complacency. Those who believe they dominate act prematurely, exposing alliances, methods, and priorities, clarifying the board while you conserve resources. Surprise compresses response windows, and compressed windows increase error. Perceived harmlessness disperses coalitions, while overt dominance creates them. By remaining beneath scrutiny, you move freely, disciplined by patience rather than driven by recognition. Victory that announces itself provokes memory and revenge, but victory that leaves no visible scar dissolves quietly. When defeat feels like inconvenience rather than humiliation, it fades, preserving peace and preventing cycles of retaliation. Conditions shift, access narrows, incentives realign, and behavior changes without attribution, allowing you to retain relationships across lines and maintain optionality as circumstances evolve. Time becomes an ally here, because delay reverses pressure. Whoever demands resolution first negotiates from weakness. Waiting widens context. It cools emotion, exposes contradictions, and allows consequences to surface without your involvement. Manipulation, reliant on speed, stalls when momentum is denied, and impatience reveals dependency. By setting pace rather than reacting to it, you shape outcomes before moves are visible. Excessive explanation undermines this authority because over-clarifying invites scrutiny, debate, and reinterpretation. Brevity signals resolution, mystery preserves influence, and decisions anchored in outcome rather than justification resist capture. The more you explain, the more threads others can pull, the greater the risk of contradiction, and the heavier the drain on focus. Results silence criticism more effectively than any defense. Stability completes the structure, because in uncertain environments, people orient themselves around what remains steady. Consistent composure, predictable behavior under pressure, and calm adaptability turn you into a reference point others unconsciously rely on. Dependence forms not through demand, but through contrast. As friction lowers and clarity increases around you, manipulation fails against stability, chaos diffuses, and systems align with the anchor they trust. Over time, authority no longer needs assertion. It is visible in the way others wait, adjust, and recalibrate their tone. What you learn here is not how to win arguments, but how to end the need for them. Power does not vanish suddenly. It leaks through reactions, impatience, overexposure, and the hunger to be validated. Discipline seals those leaks. When you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop correcting publicly, and stop rushing, pressure shifts, truth surfaces, and outcomes align without confrontation. Noise is emotional, silence is strategic, and mastery is not control over others, but control over self, because the individual who cannot be provoked cannot be defeated, and the one who remains calm, while others unravel quietly, decides where every conflict ends. The next layer of power lies in controlling visibility, because what people see, they prepare for, and what they cannot see, they fear. Most individuals expose their intentions far too early. They announce plans, signal ambition, and telegraph emotion, believing transparency builds trust. In reality, it builds resistance. When your direction is visible, opposition forms in advance. Minds align against you quietly, contingencies are built, and momentum is slowed before it begins. Power moves best in partial shadow. This does not mean deception, it means discretion. When you keep your long-term intentions private, others interact with you based on the present moment, not a projected future they feel threatened by. Ambition revealed invites sabotage, but ambition concealed invites cooperation. By limiting what you show, you control the narrative gap, and people fill that gap with assumptions that often favor you. They underestimate, misjudge, or delay response, giving you time and positional advantage. Strategic ambiguity keeps doors open while others lock themselves into expectations. The one who reveals least retains the most maneuverability, because flexibility is impossible once identity becomes public. Let actions speak late, and only when they are irreversible. The next principle is never correct or humiliate an enemy in public, because dignity, once wounded before witnesses, demands repayment. Public correction rarely changes behavior, it hardens it. People do not fight for truth when embarrassed, they fight to restore status. Even when you are right, exposure creates an emotional debt that must be settled, and that settlement almost never favors you. Quiet correction preserves influence, while public dominance creates silent opposition. A person whose pride is spared may comply without resentment, but one whose pride is crushed will comply only until opportunity appears. True control is not about forcing submission, it is about shaping alignment. When you allow others to save face, you gain leverage without resistance. They remember how you made them feel more than what you proved. And discretion builds loyalty where spectacle builds enemies. In Machiavellian reality, today's defeated rival is tomorrow's necessary ally, and humiliation poisons that future. Power that lasts avoids unnecessary scars. Correct privately, guide subtly, and let others believe they arrived at conclusions on their own. Influence works best when it feels self-directed. The third section centers on timing over talent, because even correct actions fail when executed at the wrong moment. Most people rush not because they are decisive, but because they are uncomfortable with uncertainty. They act to relieve emotional pressure, not to optimize outcome. This impatience exposes weakness. When you wait, observe, and let situations mature, patterns emerge that were invisible at first contact. People contradict themselves, alliances shift, and hidden incentives surface. Time reveals truth without interrogation. By delaying response, you force others to continue acting, and continued action creates mistakes. The one who moves last often moves best, because they move with full context while others move with fragments. Timing transforms ordinary decisions into decisive ones. A calm delay can weaken opposition more effectively than confrontation, because momentum drains without resistance. When people push for immediate resolution, it is usually because delay harms them more than you. Recognize that signal. Patience is not inactivity, it is positioning. When you strike only after clarity forms, your action appears effortless and inevitable, while others feel blindsided by outcomes they unknowingly created. Another silent advantage comes from appearing less powerful than you are, because visible strength invites coordination against you. When people perceive dominance, they instinctively look for allies, defenses, and leverage. Power that is obvious becomes a target. Power that is subtle becomes underestimated. Underestimation creates carelessness, and carelessness reveals openings. This is why those who announce confidence often lose it, while those who move quietly accumulate it. By downplaying capability, you distort expectations. Others take risks they should not take, reveal strategies they should protect, and push boundaries they believe are safe. Meanwhile, you remain composed, conserving energy, watching patterns, and mapping behavior. When action finally arrives, it feels sudden, disproportionate, and irreversible, not because it was rushed, but because it was prepared in silence. Machiavellian strength is not about intimidation, it is about miscalculation. Let others believe they are ahead, because false security accelerates their collapse. Victory that arrives without warning leaves no time for defense. Equally important is never becoming emotionally invested in outcomes, because attachment blinds judgment. When you want a specific result too badly, you begin negotiating with reality instead of observing it. You justify weak positions, tolerate disrespect, and rush decisions to preserve imagined futures. Detachment restores clarity. When you can walk away without internal conflict, you gain leverage instantly. People sense dependency before it is spoken, and they exploit it. Emotional independence reverses this dynamic. It shifts pressure outward. Others begin to negotiate more carefully, offer more willingly, and test less aggressively because they feel uncertainty about your thresholds. Detachment does not mean indifference, it means choice. You act because it serves position, not because it soothes anxiety. This freedom allows you to change direction without explanation, adapt without apology, and end engagements without drama. The one who is willing to lose preserves power because they cannot be cornered.